Good morning, friends. I'm Dewey, and my Tech Talk topic for today is news about 5G C-band and electric vehicles at the Consumer Electronics Show. Airline and aviation officials have recently argued that frequencies covered by the 5G cellular C-band has the potential to interfere with instruments used in aircraft, and they contend that the deployment of 5G near airports could endanger takeoff and landing operations. Cellular carriers, the Federal Communications Commission, and the Federal Aviation Agency have disagreed on whether C-band 5G signals using the 3.7, 3.98 gigahertz frequency range could interfere with instruments that measure in the 4.2 and 4.4 gigahertz spectrum. This is according to a recent article by David Lum and Eli Blumenthal at CNET.com. Nearly 40 countries, including Australia, China, France, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, have already deployed 5G over C-band with no issues involving aircraft. Last Friday, the FAA disclosed a list of 50 U.S. airports that will have buffer zones when wireless carriers turn on this new 5G C-band service on January 19th. AT&T and Verizon had earlier agreed to these buffer zones around airports to reduce the risk of disruption from potential interference to sensitive airplane instruments like altimeters. Once C-band service goes live on January 19th, Verizon and AT&T customers should see broader 5G service with higher speeds that fall between the 4G and millimeter wave 5G, which is blazingly fast, as they say. Because the new C-band service will be integrated into existing coverage, customers may not even realize they're connecting to the new frequencies. Verizon says its new C-band service will cover 100 million people in the US this month. AT&T is similarly bundling its C-band service with existing millimeter wave 5G. According to the article at CNET.com, Verizon and AT&T still lag behind T-Mobile, which announced in November that 80% of its customers within its 200 million person 5G coverage area can access its mid-band 5G service. T-Mobile says its mid-band networks targets average download speeds of 400 megabits per second. That is amazingly fast. By comparison, the article's authors' first Verizon C-band testing found actual speeds ranging from 400 megabits per second up to 1.4 gigabits per second when at the actual 5G emitter unit. Remember, these were tests, special tests. The photo at right shows a Samsung Galaxy S21 5G connected to Verizon C-band test network in downtown LA, Los Angeles, when doing a speed test inside an elevator. By the way, that's the $800 phone that Joanna and I each got free when trading in our old phones at a Verizon store here in Mesa last month, December. The highly controlled tests also showed nearly 100 megabit per second in an underground parking garage. Can you imagine that? Ultimately, C-band will fill a crucial gap in Verizon and AT&T's respective networks, but the January 19th launch day is just the beginning of a broader rollout. The article's author wrote that it will be interesting to find how customers react to the supplemental service, which could fulfill the 5G promise to bring high speeds to consumers beyond and outside of major cities. Or, he asks, will be just another small step in the slow network evolution after 5G. It's kind of things happen gradually, but they continue to happen. Forbes.com recently reported on future electric vehicles at this year's virtual Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. The Chevrolet Equinox EV is expected to arrive in showrooms in late 2023. Pricing will start in the low $30,000 range and appears to have all the makings of a very desirable family crossover. Very pretty car. Chrysler Airflow. Now, Chrysler last built a car called Airflow in 1934, but this design is definitely 21st century. Due by 2025, it'll be the first Chrysler electric vehicle and will herald a new generation of all-electric Chryslers. Sony Vision S SUV electric vehicle. Wow, it's powered by a pair of 268 horsepower electric motors, and although it's not known if this car will ever be built, its design seems remarkably well thought out. And if it bears the Sony brand name, you may be pretty well assured that it will have legendary Sony quality. Chevrolet Blazer electric vehicle. In addition to the Equinox EV just mentioned, GM will also build a fully electrified Blazer by the end of the year. It's expected to start at $35,000 and will likely be a larger and longer ranged electric vehicle. Mercedes-Benz Vision EQXX. Now get this, what a gorgeous car. Mercedes-Benz claims the car's lightweight and hyper-efficient systems are capable of an astonishing 621-mile range from its nearly 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack. It's about the size of a Tesla 3 and will make it into production as early as 2024. I wasn't able to find pricing information, but don't expect to see it as a prize in a box of Cracker Jacks. So Chevrolet Silverado electric vehicle. Its unibody architecture is shared with the GMC Hummer EV pickup. It features an integrated bed, a relatively low payload capacity, and is reminiscent of the long-departed Chevrolet Avalanche. It's kind of got that little funny thing at the back window. It goes on sale in 2023 as a work truck with a high-end street trim version to follow. Well, that's my Tech Talk story for today. And again, I am sticking with it. I'd like to say I'm going to be seeing you next week, but I'm going to be taking a several-month hiatus until sometime in April, when I again have sufficient time to prepare Dewey's Tech Talk. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and God bless.
It's Ron Brown with Tech for Senior. COVID and your smartwatch. This week I've been watching the news and have seen so many people standing in line for hours only to be turned away and told to self-monitor at home. They were waiting for all that time for a test. This is very frustrating, and wondered, as a retired physician who writes a lot of articles about smartwatches, if I could help. I own the Fitbit Sense and the Galaxy Watch 4 smartwatches, but I've reviewed many more, including the Apple Watch. I looked at the clinical research and came up with 5 tips to help you figure out if you have COVID. So maybe these tips will be helpful. Let's have a look. Smartwatches and other wearable devices can help spot the coronavirus infection days before an individual is diagnosed. So let's look at how this works. Oh, by the way, don't forget the like and subscribe thing. We really appreciate it, and it helps keep us continuing to make great videos. So with the incredible pressure that's being placed on healthcare systems today, we are having huge problems testing everybody. As you know, there's the rapid antigen test, or the PCR. But we're seeing huge lineups with people waiting only to be told to go home and monitor your symptoms. So how does the smartwatch help with this? Well, the smartwatch has been monitoring bodily functions for quite a while now. And let's look at what we actually monitor. So my best knowledge is with, of course, the Apple Watch and the Fitbit Sense, which I own, and the Galaxy Watch 4. Now, what we measure with your watch is we measure your heart rate variability. We'll talk a little bit about that. Your respiration rate, your oxygen level, temperature, sleep, and blood pressure. All these parameters we can measure through your smartwatch, or sometimes even a ring. We might even talk about that a bit later as well. So this is data that we collect from your body and record it through sensors in the watch. All right, there are 4 measurements that your smartwatch makes that may help diagnose whether you have COVID or not. And we're going to look at these, and these are backed up by some research articles. One is temperature. The second is heart rate variability. The third is respiration rate. And the fourth is heart rate. Now, the Apple Watch and the Galaxy Watch 4 don't measure your temperature, but the Fitbit Sense does, and a lot of smartwatches do. What we're really talking about here is not intermittent temperature measurement, such as if you were through the day, you thought you might have a bit of a fever, and you push a button. But the University of California research looked at continuous temperature measurements, such as the smartwatch, the Fitbit Sense does, is it measures your temperature for 8 hours through sleep overnight and tells you if you've had any change in your temperature. They looked at continuous temperature monitoring and see if it would give us a clue as to whether you would have an infection or not. Let's look at how this works. All right, the Fitbit Sense uses a dedicated sensor to estimate your skin temperature variation each night. When you wear a compatible Fitbit device to sleep, it checks your skin temperature every minute. When the Fitbit app has at least 3 nights of temperature data, it estimates what your personal baseline temperature is. So here's an example of my smartwatch and my temperature assessment. You'll see on the right side, it gives me a graph of what my temperature was, an average of each night. And this was it was probably a year ago. I felt well, and you'll see on the Thursday, my temperature did go up a little bit. Whatever the reason for that was, I don't know, but this gives you an average graph of what your temperature would be each night based on the 8 hours when you sleep. And that's why it's important, because of most of these health monitoring applications on watches measure overnight. So it's important to wear your watch through the nighttime. And this is something that I want you to keep a close watch on for the following reason. I want to tell you about a friend of mine who was triple vaxxed. He had a negative PCR and then within a week had a positive PCR. Now, when we looked back at what happened through the week, he was monitoring his temperature every night. And if you see on the graph here, you'll see that on the Thursday night, there was certainly a peak elevation in his temperature that he didn't know, a subclinical elevation of the temperature. He actually was wearing an Oura ring. This is a device you wear on your ring finger, and it, of course, continually measures his temperature. He had no symptoms whatsoever, but did develop a clinical COVID infection. And this likely occurred on the Thursday and was evidenced by an elevated temperature through the night that he had no idea he had. So one of the things you can do is, if you have a smartwatch that's measuring your temperature, make sure you look at this each morning. Your watch won't tell you. You have to go and look at the graph, and if you're self-isolating, wondering if you have an infection, look at the graph each morning. All right, the second thing I want to talk about is heart rate variability. Now, most of you know about heart rates. In other words, your heart speeds up or your heart slows down. But heart rate variability is the interval between heartbeats. You probably have felt your heartbeat 80 beats per minute, and it seems pretty regular. But actually, there is a beat-to-beat variation, and this is called heart rate variability, and it is a predictor of heart health. And this is what the apps usually use. But the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York found something very interesting. Now, they looked at HRV tracking on the Galaxy Watch 4, Apple Watch, and of course the Fitbit Sense, and they found significant changes in the amplitude of the circadian HRV pattern on the first day of symptoms, with a trend towards statistical significance on the day before and after symptoms are reported. Taken together with these findings suggest the possible use of HRV data collection to identify and predict COVID-19 infection. So You may have seen this on your watch, but you should look because it's there. As with the temperature graph, you will find an HRV graph. And what the important thing to watch here is, of course, a change. If you see that your HRV is, and it should be roughly the same level, if all of a sudden you see it going way up or way down, in conjunction with a spike in your temperature, then this can in fact be a clinical COVID infection. So in this Italian study, we were able to see a specific respiratory rate increase that was able to detect the COVID infection prior to symptoms occurring. And this study at the University of Stanford showed that an elevated heart rate could certainly identify a COVID-19 infection. So let's put these all together and see what we might see. So let's look at these warning signs from the Fitbit study. They looked at breathing rate, and heart rate variability. And as you can see in this study, it went from a very normal level into a wildly abnormal level. And this likely was the culmination of a COVID infection. But subclinical, and the person didn't know they had it. So by watching your smartwatch and paying attention to the app, you physically have to go there each day and look at these parameters. This may give you a clue as to an infection. So in summary, there are 4 things that we want you to measure. And if you're at home and you're doing self-isolation and you feel fine, these are things that you can look at on your smartwatch. Have a look at them and see if it's helpful. So the last tip will be, will smartwatches be able to diagnose a COVID infection? And that is a very interesting prospect, of which there are about 3 studies, large studies that have been done. And by measuring those indices that we talked about, we can create an algorithm that's about 85% accurate, which just isn't quite enough to be clinical significant. So we're pretty close, and it's going to come. And I think that very shortly we will see the ability of these devices to accurately predict.
Okay, good morning, Tech for Seniors. Today we're going to do part 2 of creating a Plex server. Basically, we're going to focus on copying, or the real term, ripping your DVD and Blu-ray discs. Now, just a recap from part 1 that I did several weeks back. What is a Plex server, and why should you want one? Well, a Plex media server allows you to store, organize, and access all of your media from one centralized location. Now, this could include your collection of theatrical movies, which we're going to focus on today, as well as TV shows that you've obtained from DVDs and Blu-ray discs. It's also all the home movies that you may have taken over the decades. It includes the photos that you've taken over even a longer period of time and perhaps have scanned into your computer. And it's music, the audio CDs, as well as music-related performances from DVD and Blu-ray discs. So by installing the Plex app on your portable devices, you have another way to access your media collection. And Plex also provides its own streaming capability with ad-related movies and TV shows that are free to stream on any device with a Plex app. All right, so let's get started with part 2. Now, let's think about it. What are the primary reasons to copy theatrical movies from a DVD or Blu-ray disc to a Plex server? Why would you even want to do that? Well, 1, they can then be easily retrieved and played as a movie on any number of devices, televisions, of course, as well as computers, tablets, and smartphones. This can be at home or away without having to rely on using an optical drive player. You can share these movies with family members and others who may live either across town or even across the country. Hey, how about having one's movie collection backed up? Now realize most streaming services add and delete movies each month, so you can't always depend on a favorite to be available to stream for free. And besides that, who wants to pay to stream a movie you already own? Now, I'm going to be honest with you, there are some factors I did not consider when I started ripping my DVD Blu-ray discs. First one was the time involved. Now, depending on the size of your collection, the time involved with ripping and organizing can be substantial. Many factors contribute to ripping times, including the computer specs, mainly the processor speed, and the size of your movie file. DVDs are up to 4.77 gigabytes, and Blu-rays can hold up to 25 gigabytes, and you can double these capacities for dual-layer discs. So to speed up the process, I used 2 computers simultaneously and had them located in my office so the ripping could be done in the background while I was working on other type of projects. My old HP desktop, which is now the Plex server, that has a built-in DVD drive, so I use that for the DVDs. And then on my Surface Book laptop, I purchased a portable Blu-ray drive that I was able to attach via USB. Another factor I didn't consider when I started ripping was the amount of storage space I need. Now, the desktop I converted to a Plex server had 2 drives. It had a solid state drive that I installed about a year ago, 2 terabytes in size, and it had a second 2 terabyte hard disk drive, total of 4 terabytes. So when I took into consideration that in addition to the 300 plus theatrical movies that I'm going to be putting on the Plex server, then I realized what I have in home movies, in music videos, MP3 audio files, TV shows, and scanned photos. I realized that 4 terabytes was not enough. So I ended up purchasing an additional 6 terabyte portable hard drive that I'm using in connection with the other 2. So this will be a total of 10 terabytes. But this portable unit was a good idea, I think, because it'll make it easier for me to move my data should I decide to upgrade the Plex server in the future. All right, so what programs do I use to rip the movie discs? Well, the first one is called Wondershare's Video Converter. And they actually called it the Wondershare Unit Converter. And that was a program I purchased a couple of years back before I discovered Handbrake and MKV. So it's not inexpensive. It's $40 a year, $56 for 2 years, and $80 on the perpetual plan. But I like the program because it is really easy to use. And one feature I like, it has the ability to easily merge 2 or more videos. So if I've done a couple of videos or if I have a couple of videos that I want them to be together, I use the unit converter to combine them. Other features include a screen recorder and a DVD burner. But this program only works with DVDs, not with Blu-ray discs. Now, another program to rip movie discs is called Handbrake. That's their website. It's a free open source video transcoder, and that's the site that you should download it from. And when installing Handbrake, you may be asked to download and install Net 5.0 runtime, and that's okay. This program works well with DVDs, but will receive a message that it's not able to rip Blu-ray discs. Typically, I use the standard settings without the need to make any changes. And I choose the conversion format to make them into MP4s. And then there's one called MakeMKV.com. It's another free video transcoder you can download from that site, MakeMKV.com. This program works well with transcoding all types of discs, in particular Blu-ray, by keeping the data in a set of what is known as MKV files that preserve chapters as well as the video and audio tracks. Now, MakeMKV does not compress the movie file size. So some users will actually use Handbrake to convert the MKV file to a smaller size. Now that is a nice way to make them smaller, but it obviously adds to the time involved factor because it's now making this conversion a two-step process. Now here's a comparison chart that I obtained from a website called renelab.com, RENEELAB.com, and it really succinctly explains the difference between these two popular video formats, MKV and MP4. So I'm going to just highlight the ones I've made in red. For video quality, it mentions that MKV is high quality and high definition. And that makes sense because, as we just discussed, it keeps a very large file. And MP4, it says, is a good video quality. And I'll add to the MP4 that it's widely used. And here we go, supported media player. So MKAV can be played on some mainstream media players, whereas MP4, almost all media players are supported. Mobile devices, only some for MKV, almost all for MP4. Video encoding, almost all is supported for MKV, and then most of the popular ones are for MP4. Same is true for supported audio encoding. Now you have to tell Plex where to look for the files. After the movie file is saved on the server, you need to specify in the Plex app where this is so the program will find it. In other words, you have to give it the drive letter and the folder name. Within your home, the movie file will be sent from the server via Wi-Fi, or if you have a direct Ethernet cable to your TV or any of the other home devices. Now you can view your movie collection outside the home, but this requires a paid Plex Pass and some further configuration, which I have not tried yet. Now the first video I'm going to show is how to rip a Blu-ray disc using Make MKV. I don't have the time today to discuss or show how to use Handbrake, but there are similarities. And the second video shows how the ripped movie is played on a home TV using the Plex app. Part 3 of this Plex series in the future will demonstrate using Plex for the home movies, family photos, and for me in particular, my collection of music videos and MP3 files. I hope the others who use Plex will comment on their experience after today's session is over. Okay, back to you, Ron.
Okay, I'll go. So you want me to play the
Play the two videos, one after the other, number one first.
Okay, doke. This is the one we'll go.
Okay, with this video clip, I'm going to demonstrate how to use a free software called Make MKV, and how to use that to copy or rip a Blu-ray disc. Now, Blu-ray disc normally has a variety of different kinds of software in it that tries to prevent the copying, but this Make MKV has been able to get beyond that. So first thing I've done is I've put the disc. It's a movie called The International. There it is. I certainly have the original, which I purchased many years ago. And I put the Blu-ray disc in my Blu-ray player. And I'm going to click on and looks like actually little disc inside of a player. And that is MKV about to start. And it's going to analyze the disc. And it's going to look at all the different aspects of it, and it's going to decide what it needs to keep and what it doesn't need to keep. And this is pretty quick. This might take 10, 15 seconds, and then it'll give a lot of information here that you don't even have to worry about reading or understanding, and boom, it's done. So what it's showing here is all the different chapters that are involved. Now, the first line here is the name of the movie, came out in 2009, 20 chapters, 31.5 gigabytes. Yes, these Blu-rays are going to always be large files. And then the ones following it are either megabytes or small. And this could be previews of something. This could be commentary. So the only one I'm really interested usually is the first one, particularly when it has, the full number of chapters in the file. So I'm going to start at the bottom and just uncheck all of these. I wish they had the one button that either checks everything or unchecks everything, but maybe that'll come in a future edition of Make MKV. So I'm just about to, okay, so now I've unchecked all the other ones that we don't need. And I'm going to open up the first one, though, the one that I will be ripping, to see what it includes. Now, certainly I want the video, surround sound, and then it has different kinds of audios in foreign languages. So there's one here in French, which we really don't need, and these other in Spanish and Portuguese. Going to keep English subtitles, absolutely. The English, now we're getting to subtitles in other languages. Again, I barely speak English, so I'm anything that's French or Spanish or Portuguese or any of these other European languages for subtitles, I will never be using them. So why go to the trouble of copying them? It's better not to make the file as big. So I'm eliminating all of these. The last one here says attachment is the JPEG, and it's probably a cover art of some kind. I'm going to add a check mark to that just so we can have that. All right, so now we've done and checked the ones I want. I'm going to close this up again. So it's really just this one with all the chapters, 31.5 gigabytes. I'm going to now click over here where it says Make MKV. And it's telling me that, and I did this once before. It's telling me that we want to overwrite it. Yes, I do want to overwrite that existing file that I'm saving to my C drive. And I can hear the disk drive moving, and it's reading more information. And you can see it's analyzing it further. And then it's going to begin the saving to an MKV file. Now, this could take a while. This could take, well, I'll tell you how much it takes at the end, but I'm not going to have you sit through it. For now, I'm going to pause the video, and then when this is completed, when there's green bars going all the way across here, then I will come back and we'll continue it. Okay, we're done. We've finished with the Make MKV. It is took about an hour to do that movie, just a little bit under, and now it's been saved. So let's take a look. I'm going to open up File Explorer where I know it was saved, and there it is, the International 2009, 24.7 gigabytes. So we can see it went from 31.5 down to 24.7. So we did save some space. And if I double click on it, it's going to be opened. And if I play an hour and 58-minute movie, if I double click on it, it'll start to play. And I'm back, and so that's how you take with using Make MKV, a Blu-ray disc, and now I have that file saved on my computer, and now I'm going to put it on my new server, my Plex server, and then link it to the right file.